I would like to share with you what I saw in the online about spirituality, and then add my own understanding about it. So many definitions we can find on this topic of spirituality. I picked something which I thought is more relevant in my understanding. Spirituality is the process of finding meaning or purpose and direction in one's life, and it involves continued interest for exploring a relationship with an intangible and pervasive power that is beyond human existence and the rational mind. My understanding of spirituality is about knowing our true nature beyond this body in which the soul is trapped, practically. It also involves following a process or practices leading to God realization. In that definition, online definition, it talks about exploring a relationship and with the intangible all-pervasive power. That all-pervasive power we know as the Supreme Lord, we call Lord Krishna. So, and this relationship with him is very, very important. We all are sensitive beings. We do relish relationship. It's very difficult for a person to stay on his own without having opportunity to interact with others. It is a natural tendency to seek relationship. In fact, the family unit is a very good example. All over the world, in every civilization, family unit is very important. So it is natural for us. Why? Because we have original relationship with the Supreme. So that is being reflected. In fact, for tradition, we know that whatever is we see here in this material world is kind of a reflection of something really happening in the spiritual. We call this material as a temporary world, because this material also manifest or unmanifestation. Sometimes it's called creation and this. But actually, nothing is actually destroyed, because matter is also permanent, but it goes through changes. Sometimes it's manifest, sometimes it's unmanifest by the Supreme Lord. So, therefore, this relationship is very important. We'll see that a little bit later on also. There are people who are known as seekers. The seekers are the people who are looking into spirituality and they are doing something practical about it. They follow certain practices. Eventually realize the Supreme Lord. Actually, typically it is known as God realization. To realize God means to establish a relationship with the Supreme. So this is very now very much popular. Yoga practices and things like that. Previously, yes, religion also has the same purpose only, but spirituality is the essence of the religion. Often people get carried away with religion, with certain of their own understanding, not using the scriptures which are relevant in that religion, not studying the scripture adequately. So therefore, there are opportunity for having different opinions about what religion is. So therefore some conflicts which happen, we know there's so many things happen in this world in the name of religion. Whereas spirituality is more universal because it not related to particular, it is actually something person aspires for. So it is universal in nature. It is also an eternal quest. So this is a very important distinction. Spirituality is more relevant for us. That's what we also follow. There is a religious aspect to that because certain rituals and practices are part of any tradition. So therefore, they are only the part of it, but the essence again is the knowledge and how we live, in that knowledge, how we utilize that knowledge. I want to relate something with you. In the early days of my coming to ISKCON, so those days there was not no computers, no online facility to participate and listen to. So you have to be at the temple. So I was in one such gathering, like this on a Sunday program. The speaker, a devotee of Krishna, of course, he started his talk by saying that we all have desires. And then he added, not one, but many. Is it not so? Is it? That's actually the fact. Then he asked the question, what is that one single desire which includes the purpose of fulfilling all different desires? That means only one desire you can have. So what is the desire you would like to express it as? Anyone has any thought? Then he answered the question, that single desire, which includes fulfilling the purpose of all the desire, he said, to be always happy. Does it sound reasonable to you? If your desire to be always happy is fulfilled, almost all other desires are kind of included in this. But we don't normally think about this because we do have many desires. We don't think that one desire is good enough for us. So we have multiple desires. But in reality, to be always happy also our true nature. In fact, in our tradition, the soul is defined as Satchit Ananda. That soul is eternal, or it is cognizant, and it is blissful in nature. Right? So why it is so? Because we also know that soul is the part and parcel of the Supreme Being, or we call Supreme Soul, Lord Sri Krishna. So the Supreme Soul is very a person who is very attractive in all these features. And he has the most desirable of everything because he is the source. So Krishna is most beautiful, he is most powerful, he is most knowledgeable, he has all the wealth, and also with all these things also, he is not attached to any of this. So that's something which is very interesting to note, that Krishna has all of this, but he's still not attached to any of these so-called opulences he has. So that's something very, very interesting, because we are, kind of take pride in something, if you're good in something, we're very, very happy about it. And we lose something, we become unhappy about it, So that is not the case with Lord Sri Krishna, because everything is always his own. So then he said, he and his colleagues at the temple were following a spiritual practice given by spiritual master Srila Prabhupada. He said that this knowledge in these books has convinced him to pursue spirituality, because whatever practice he had done that much time, a few, probably 4 or 5 years, so he became convinced that it is possible to be always happy. So he said that he had that inclination that by reading Prabhupada books, he was convinced he need to pursue this spiritual practice to become always happy. Then after the talk is over, I have not read till that time much about spirituality. So I went up to him and asked, what is meant by spirituality? What did he mean by that? Because I heard about religion and things like that, but spirituality was something relatively new to me. Then he explained briefly about it, but then he encouraged me to read Srila Prabhupada books. And he also told me that there are some cassette tapes were available, with Srila Prabhupada's talks. That if you can get these types, if you can listen to that, if you can also read Srila Prabhupada books, things will become clear. Then I decided, okay, I will do that. I start reading, Srila Prabhupada's books. What happened? I had many questions which I never asked anybody, because I was not sure I was going to get, satisfactory responses to my questions. So therefore, the questions remained in my mind. So I never bothered to ask. Then when I read Srila Prabhupada books, many of these questions were actually answered in a very interesting way. I was not even seeking answers, but when I read that something, I said, oh, this clarifies something I always wondered about. So that is the power of Srila Prabhupada books. You see, I could feel even within a few, weeks or months of reading Srila Prabhupada books, so many of my doubts became clarified. So this is the, what we are, in our society, we are reading the authorized, books, because these are the books of knowledge. It is this knowledge about our own nature. It is this material world. Who is the supreme being? What is our purpose in life? So all these are actually fully answered in Srila Prabhupada's books. So I wanted to bring in the aspect of our existence. We all are living beings. We have both material and spiritual aspect. So material aspect we can understand because we all have this body. But spiritual aspect is little difficult to comprehend, because we know we can feel matter, we can touch, we can, taste matter in the sense, because what we eat is also matter. So what we drink is also matter. Everything is only material thing. Okay, so therefore we can easily relate to what is matter. But spirit is something which is difficult for us to immediately grasp. But it is possible, because we see the non-material thing which is in each body is the one which keeps the body alive. That is what we call as spirit or soul. So without the presence of the soul, the body is actually motionless. It cannot function. It is done. So therefore, it is that part of us, or in fact, really, that is what we are, truly we are. We are actually the spirit. So as long as the spirit is in a particular body, that body works. But once that spirit leaves, then the body is motionless. It's eventually as a matter. So this is what we are really are. So to understand this and understand what is the purpose of life, and how do we achieve the purpose of life, is what spirituality is about. So what we also know about soul is not only eternal, it is also cognizant. That is what this term Sat Chit Ananda means. Sat means eternal, Chit means cognizant, and Ananda is being blissful. So we have to practice certain discipline in our life, and we also need to have this knowledge. So this is a combination of having the knowledge and doing the practices which will help us to realize the import of this knowledge. So that is what this tradition is about. We have certain practices. For example, we need to chant certain mantra. These mantras are very, very powerful. These mantras existed for thousands of years, and so many great personalities have chanted these mantras, and so many thousands of people have practiced in all through the different generations. And they all have, by practicing chanting of this mantra and reading and getting this knowledge and realizing this knowledge in practical life, they all have achieved perfection of life. That means knowing their eternal relationship and being situated in that relationship with the Supreme Lord. So this is what actually, what we are living in this material realm, but there is a spiritual realm which is forever existing. In spiritual realm, nothing really comes into being, become unmanifest. Spiritual realm is ever manifest. It is eternal. Just like all spiritual entities are also eternal, the spiritual realm is also eternal. It's typically known as Vaikuntha planet. Okay, all these Vaikuntha planet, there is so much variety in them. So we all look for variety. We are not happy with one particular color of a dress. We want different colors in our dress. So we want different taste. So this is variety actually adds for the relishment of one's existence. So this variety is amazingly in various ways it manifests in the spiritual realm. And this is actually the true home of each of the soul, each of us. We actually truly belong to that realm, that spiritual realm. But we find ourselves in this material realm, which is kind of an incompatible situation, because material realm is by nature, it is temporary, and here things are going to change. And the situation will change. We may be happy and joyful in particular period of time, but again, we may not continue with that. We may be afflicted with certain things. Okay, so and even the happiness is not pure. The happiness is always, combined with a little bit of misery here and there. So no pure happiness, no permanency happiness in this material realm. Okay, but what we really looking for, as the person said, to be happy always, right? So that is possible. Okay, but that is not possible in the material realm. We can kind of achieve that state of existence even in this material body when we fully situated in that relationship, which is what the bhakti yoga practice is about. So being situated in relationship is what is very important. So these practices will help us to come to that stage. So that's what is our spirituality is about. I want to request all our guests, particularly, what is important is not only that you try to practice it, you will feel inspired when you are in the association of, the devotees who are already practicing. What I wanted to mention to you also, when I read Srila Prabhupada books, I was very impressed. Then I came to know that in the temple, they were also having program. This was in Montreal during the 70s. I came to know that they are having programs also on the weekdays. So I said, oh, I can gather more knowledge when I attend on weekdays also. So I started going. Of course, I couldn't go every day in the morning, but I was able to go in the evening. So I went there in the evening. And then I was with the devotees and listened to the lectures and participate in discussions. And, had prasadam with them. And eventually I was engaged in doing certain services as well. So this is what is called association of like-minded people. Somehow I was motivated to be in that association, and it tremendously helped me. The inspiration I got is incredible. See, we are always confronted with various difficult situations in our lives. So sometimes we are inspired to do something, but sometimes we may not be inspired because, material life is like that. Some kind of upadhi, kleshas, they call it, three kind of kleshas are there. They call adhyatmic, adi baudik, adi devik, which means the troubles or miseries which caused by our own body and also by the mind, and that is called adhyatmic. And what is coming from the external, from other living beings, typically summertime, the mosquitoes and the cockroaches, whatnot, all these insects, and perhaps even from other fellow human beings. That's what this world is about. We are facing many different situations. So adhyatmic, adi baudik, adi devik is, of course, is natural calamities. Heavy rains, flooding, and forest fires, and earthquakes, and whatnot, the tsunami. So this is what material world is about. All these things are there. So therefore, we may not remain inspired all the time. But when we are in the association of people who are already situated like that, and who also relish the devotional practices or spiritual practices, then we also feel inspired to be like one of them. And that is the power of being in the association. So what it takes our own interest in pursuing spiritual practices, being in the association of people who are already practicing it, reading the books, author is the books which help us, it gives us the knowledge which help us to understand things better. So all these are aspects of spiritual practice. And what is the benefit? The benefit is being our true self, free from all these encumbrances, and eventually go back home, back to Godhead, where we truly belong. Prabhupada coined this term, back home, back to Godhead, because he said, we are here in the transitory condition. Take, for example, when you are having the air travel, you are traveling from one place to another, and in between you have to change flights in another airport. So you go there, these days airports are filled with so many different wonderful, shops and things like that were very attractive. If you get caught, looking through this and you forget the time, you may miss your connecting flight and you'll become transitory passenger where it's not your place. Even though it may look nice and all, no, that we don't want to spend a couple of days there. So you have to go and your destination, that is your home. The same way, various ways we are existing here, we have been in this place for a long time. In fact, it said that we have taken many, many different births. That is another interesting aspect of reading these books. People will understand that as the individual soul, we have taken many different births. And ultimately, we've been given this human form of life where it is potential, is great for us to understand our true nature and put in the effort, go back home, back to Godhead. So this is the ultimate benefit of having this knowledge. So I request our guests, please pursue this, come as often as possible, ask different questions and see what things are happening, because you may read it, but then you see when people are practicing it, and you'll also get the nuances of these words, that may escape you sometimes, because spirituality is also like learning a language. You don't get to know the language very soon. You have to practice. Often you have to hear this term again and again and again and again. So in the environment where the devotees are practicing, you'll get the concept very easily understood. So that is another benefit of being in the association of devotees. So I hope our guests will come more often, participate in all our programs, and have the greatest benefit of having this wonderful association and opportunity. I'd like to stop here, and I'd like to know if there's any questions, simple questions. I'll try to respond to that. Hare Krishna.
Any questions? Some comments? The class. Hare Krishna, Guruprasad. We have one. Just a second. Let us know if you can hear it.
Yes, I can hear you Prabhu clearly.
What question now?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for a wonderful lecture. My question is how to keep devotees, how to serve them better without offending, by having a better relationship, by improving our communication skills, because it is not like any other way, speaking with any other people outside. It's devotees, they're Vaishnavas, we have to serve them. Like serving Vaishnavas is same as serving Krishna. So how to learn to communicate with the Vaishnavas?
Thank you because you brought out a very important aspect which I should have actually spoken about. This it's a very interesting thing for us to know that offenses. This is actually something which we should be very, very careful about. Thank you for asking this question, because it is offenses or impediments. So I'd like to dwell a little bit on that. See, we do commit mistakes. We are prone to commit mistakes, but we can always, we should always make it up in some way. So these offenses are even more important because they can have a detrimental effect, because the offensive mentality should never be there. Offenses may happen inadvertently, then immediately we should recognize, that, if we immediately, we can see how the other person, reacts to that, so, or it may be not be even manifest externally, it may be there inside. So if it is inside, it's okay, we can deal with it, because as long it hasn't manifested yet out. The moment it manifested, we have to, ask for, forgiveness and see how you can make it up with the devotee. So this is very important. Now, how not to have offensive attitude is also very important. We consider them as our mentors. We consider them, we have to learn things from them. So if we consider that, okay, from this person, I can see how this person is serving. When we appreciate something in everybody, we will start respecting them. So when we have respect for someone, and then we want to be careful about in that relationship. So we will be cautious not to have any tendency, coming in the way of doing that service, any tendency to offend or even to make a mistake. See, give example, suppose some guests are coming to your house. So you want to make sure that they are comfortable, they are well treated, and their needs are taken care of, because that is what hospitality is about. So we all know that we have our friends are coming, we try to give them the best. So the same way, consider them as your very dear friends, and then you want to give them the best of your capacity, whatever you can do. So when you have the thing, you want to serve to your best of ability, and then the chances that you will commit offense will be minimized. But it's important not to entertain anything ill about anybody. So that we have to practice, we have to constantly watch for, because mind is something which not under our control always. In fact, if you have this control over the mind, then like you have achieved something significant, and that is possible by chanting the mantra and being situated in this. So it is not that beyond one's capacity, but one takes a lot of effort, consistent effort. When you start consistently doing the spiritual practices, eventually we'll find that we are better off in terms of our dealing with other people. I hope it responds to your response is good enough for your understanding. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you, Guruprasad. Thank you. Any others? Additions, comments, questions? No speaker. Yeah, we have one. Sharat Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Guruprasad Prabhu. That was a very wonderful and enlightening. Prabhu, my question is that I really appreciated the way you defined spirituality, and you said that it is important to practice spirituality. One must associate with like-minded people, and it is important to come to the temple for that. So, can we not practice spirituality by ourselves at home? Could you maybe explain what is the importance of associating in the temple? Because I could also be associating with like-minded people at my place of work, at university, wherever it is. So maybe if you could just explain that element of association and why it's important to come to the temple for spirituality. Thank you.
Thank you again. Another very, very relevant question. And you brought out also a very interesting thing about, recently devotees in Ottawa, work together in putting up fantastic festivals, whether it is Janmashtami, whether it is Ratha Yatra. One can feel, the exuberance of the devotees, the eagerness to do service. So in the temple, there's a lot more opportunity to service. After all, spiritual practice involves being active. No, this is actually about devotion. Spirituality finally boils down to being devoted to the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada defined the bhakti, the term in English, in Sanskrit is called bhakti. Prabhupada always used the term, the translation bhakti as devotional service, something active. It is not just a concept. So spirituality also is not just a concept. Spirituality should manifest in day-to-day life. So the devotional service is the means for practicing spirituality. So unless there's an opportunity for us to work together, then we will not have this association. We can see how particular devotee is good in making certain things, another devotee is good in something else. So we start appreciating the devotees, service, how they do this service. And this is actually, increases our friendship with other devotees. Then we become good friends. ISKCON is a place where we can develop good friendship as well. And yes, at work also you can work with people, and also at home. I'm not saying that it is limited to temple environment. It is can happen anywhere. Devotional service and association can happen anywhere. But the chances are much more in the temple environment. Opportunities are much more. And, when we can actually see that even on a regular Sunday program, it takes a lot of things put in place for the Sunday program to be successful. So this is what, this is one of the reasons Prabhupada established temples also. Prabhupada could have just published the books because the knowledge is there in the books for sure. But then he also established because he wanted to give a place where people can come together. This is one of the important 7 missions of ISKCON. It is one of these. All these things are part of, ISKCON is already doing this. And the idea of having a temple or a preaching center is actually to give opportunity for people to come together for the purpose of practicing devotional service. So that is my understanding why the temples are and why coming to a temple is very, very relevant.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. So if I understand correctly, the temple provides a conducive environment to meet individuals who are also on the path of spirituality, and thereby associating with that like-minded mentality will lead one to progress in the right path. Is that correct, Prabhu?
Quite right, quite right. You got it. And yeah, as I said, it doesn't stop only at the temple, it also continues. Even at home, even between, within family members, between husband and wife, when they are both actually interested in doing the deity worship, you can see how nicely it can be done at home. So each person, helping others, because it's not that always one person is doing it. The other person also joins, and then therefore, the whole mood is something wonderful when people are working together. We all have experienced that, right? So that is the power of being in the association, particularly in the temple setting. As I said, a lot of opportunities, wonderful opportunities, right? And for example, even cooking requires, people, bring the item, people helping in cooking with cutting the vegetables and cleaning up the pots and pans, and, the whole, opportunity is unlimited really in the temple environment. Thank you again for this wonderful question. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Any other comments, additions? Yeah. Guruprasad Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I have one more question. How to differentiate between faithless person and how to motivate or inspire people who are not Krishna conscious, because out of the 10 offenses there is also like not to advise the faithless people about Krishna consciousness. I still not finding the gap.
Mm-hmm. This is the nature of a devotee. Devotee always wants to benefit someone else, because that is how, that is, devotee knows that part of his devotional practice is also that not only he needs to make the progress, he or she needs to make the progress, and as part of it, also helping others. It's a very good attitude in some way to inspire others. But then people are of different nature. So some people can easily, relate to what you say. Others may find it difficult. That's okay, because it is the person's own background and where the person comes from, and maybe including a person's, accumulated vasanas, what we call is coming from various different births. So it can happen even within the family. I have seen, in the same family, one and among the siblings, one will be more interested, another will be probably less interested, one may not be interested at all in spirituality. So we are all individuals. So therefore we have our individual nature. But the devotee aspiring to in some way to help others is very wonderful. And what best we can do is we can definitely pray for others, especially whom we care about. And we can also share. For example, I did it also in the office environment. When they were not ready to take books, I shared prasadam with them. And many people liked it, wonderful cookies from the temple. So cookies are always a hit. So they very readily accepted, cookie prasadam. So we can benefit them in that way. And if they are willing, eventually you can slowly encourage them to do certain practices. Once they know that you care for them, when they have that faith, then they will accept what you say. So we have to develop that kind of a relationship with them. Till the time, we do our best, but never to put people off. So if they are not ready, leave them alone. Okay. And so always leave a good impression with whomever we interact. That's very important. Okay.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guruprasad Prabhu, for encouraging us to seek for association with devotees, to come to the temple, to look for some service. Thank you. And from that,
this is the experience of so many devotees. And I'm not saying anything new. This is the experience of so many devotees, and I'm just only repeating what all I have heard and I have seen. So I'm not saying anything new. I'm just only kind of bringing it again into our discussion, into our thinking. And thank you for the opportunity to be with you all. I'm very much looking forward to be there in Ottawa physically and to participate in the temple program soon. Hare Krishna.